It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
Have you ever met a man so rich he could light cigars with $100 bills, yet would choke over a penny when it came time to pay a worker? My client was exactly that type. He decided to stiff me on a miserable $100 just for the power trip, to show me who owns whom. He didn't know one thing: I don't forgive debts. This is the story of how I turned his greed into his sentence and extracted compensation 1,000 times larger than what he owed. They say money can't buy class, but it can certainly buy the illusion of it. And nobody bought illusions better than Marcus Vane. I'm a specialist. Let's just say when high-end digital infrastructure starts bleeding money or crashing faster than a crypto scam, I'm the guy they call to staunch the wound. I don't work cheap. I don't work fast. But I work perfectly. That's my reputation. When Vane's assistant contacted me, I should have hung up. The rumors about Vane were legendary in the industry. He was a tech mogul who had pivoted to lifestyle branding, which is just corporate speak for selling overpriced garbage to people desperate to feel important. But the offer was too good to refuse. A 6-week contract to overhaul his entire internal server architecture before a massive product launch. The pay was substantial. Enough to clear my mortgage. I took the bait. For 6 weeks, I lived in hell. Vane's office was a glass and steel panopticon in the city center. The air conditioning was always set to freezing, presumably to keep the employees awake and shivering. Vane didn't walk, he strutted. He was a man who wore $5,000 suits but screamed at interns for buying the wrong brand of sparkling water. I kept my head down. I did the work. I rewired their security protocols, optimized their databases, and essentially saved them from a catastrophic data breach that was waiting to happen. I worked 18-hour days. I slept under my desk more times than I slept in my own bed. I missed my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner because Vane decided he needed a status update at 11 p.m. on a Friday. I swallowed my pride. I swallowed the insults. I swallowed the way he would look at me like I was a piece of gum stuck to his Italian leather shoe. Why? Because of the payout. The contract was solid. A flat fee plus a completion bonus for finishing ahead of schedule. And I did finish ahead of schedule. 3 days early. The system was humming. It was a masterpiece of code. Vane's empire was secure, faster than ever, and ready for his big launch. On the final day, I walked into his office to hand over the master keys and the final documentation. The room smelled of expensive cologne and ozone. Vane was behind his massive oak desk, typing on his phone, not even looking up as I entered. "It's done," I said, placing the drive on his desk. "System is live. 0 bugs." 3 days early. Vane finally looked up. He had these cold, dead shark eyes. He picked up the drive, weighed it in his hand like he was buying fruit, and gave a dismissive grunt. "About time," he muttered. "I'm early, Marcus," I corrected him, keeping my voice steady. "Per the contract, that triggers the final payment plus the expedited completion bonus." He smirked. "A nasty, tight little thing." "Right. The bonus. Talk to accounting. Get out of my sight." I walked out feeling lighter than air. I was done. I was free. I had survived the beast. I went home, cracked open a beer, and waited for the notification from my bank. I didn't know it yet, but the war hadn't even started. The beast wasn't just going to let me walk away. He was going to try to take a bite out of me, just to see if I tasted like fear. The notification pinged on my phone the next morning. Deposit received. I opened the banking app, expecting to see the full amount we agreed upon, the remaining fee plus the $5,000 bonus. The numbers were there. But something was wrong. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. I pulled up the calculator app. I pulled up the contract. I did the math 3 times. It was short. Not by thousands. Not by millions. It was short by exactly $100. $100. Out of a contract worth tens of thousands, $100 was missing. At first, I thought it was a bank fee. A wire transfer error. A glitch. I called the bank. They confirmed the sender had manually entered that exact amount. It wasn't an automated error. It was deliberate. I called Vane's accounting department. The poor girl on the line sounded terrified when I mentioned who I was. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered. Mr. Vane personally reviewed the final payout last night. He adjusted the total. Adjusted it? I asked, my grip tightening on the phone. Based on what? The contract is fixed. He said he deducted a processing fee for the coffee you drank in the break room over the last 6 weeks. I went silent. The room spun slightly. Coffee. The cheap, burnt sludge they kept in the communal pot? He charged me for coffee? You have to be joking, I said, my voice dangerously low. I'm sorry, she squeaked and hung up. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the wall. It wasn't the money. I had just made a healthy sum. $100 wouldn't change my life. I could lose $100 in the street and just be annoyed for an hour. But this? This was a slap in the face. This was Vane telling me, I own you. I can take what I want, even the crumbs, and you will say thank you. It was about dominance. It was about power. I picked up the phone and dialed Vane's direct line. I knew he wouldn't answer, but I left a voicemail. Marcus, it's me. There's a mistake on the transfer. You're short $100. Fix it today, or we have a problem. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Vane. Stop harassing my staff, he barked, no hello, no preamble. Stop stealing my money, I shot back. You deducted $100 for coffee? Are you insane? That wasn't in the contract. I heard him laugh. It was a dry, rasping sound. The contract says I cover reasonable expenses. I decided your caffeine addiction wasn't reasonable. You drank too much. Consider it a tax on your greed. My greed? I laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. You're a multimillionaire, Marcus. You're nickeling and diming me over coffee after I saved your lunch? I'm a multimillionaire because I don't let the help rob me, he hissed. Listen to me, you keyboard monkey. You got paid. You got your little bonus. If you want that $100, come and sue me. See how much that costs you. My lawyers charge $1,000 an hour just to sneeze. Do the math. It's the principle, Marcus, I said. Principle is for poor people, he sneered. Don't call me again. Or I'll blacklist you in this town so hard you won't even be able to get a job fixing toasters. The line went dead. I put the phone down gently on the table. He was right about one thing. Suing him for $100 in small claims court would be a waste of time. He'd delay, he'd appeal, he'd bury me in paperwork. It would cost me more in gas money to drive to the courthouse than I'd ever win. He was counting on that. He was counting on the math of apathy. He knew 99% of people would curse him, drink a whiskey, and move on. But I am not 99% of people. And he had made a fatal error. He assumed the only leverage I had was the contract. He forgot what I did for those 6 weeks. He forgot that to fix a system, you have to see everything inside it. I didn't just see his servers. I saw his ghosts. I picked up my phone again. But this time, I didn't call Vane. I called an old friend from college. Saul. Well, his name wasn't Saul, but he operated like him. A shark in a cheap suit who hated bullies more than he loved money. Hey, I said when he answered. How would you like to make some easy money and skin a whale? I'm listening, he said. I need to sue someone. But not for the money they owe me. I want to sue them for everything else. My Saul was named David. He worked out of an office that smelled of stale takeout and old paper, located above a laundromat. He wasn't the kind of lawyer you saw on billboards. He was the kind of lawyer you called when you wanted to hurt someone legally, efficiently, and painfully. I sat across from him, explaining the situation. When I got to the part about the coffee deduction, David didn't laugh. He stopped taking notes, looked at me over his glasses, and smiled. A slow, predatory smile. He admitted it? David asked. He admitted on the phone that he deducted wages for office amenities without prior written consent? He bragged about it, I said. Called it a tax on my greed. David leaned back, steepling his fingers. Beautiful. Arrogance is the best evidence. But $100 isn't enough to hurt him. We need a nuclear option. Tell me about the work environment. The hours. The control he had over you. I was a contractor, I shrugged. Independent. 6 weeks. Were you? David raised an eyebrow. Did you set your own hours? No. He demanded I be there 9 to 9, sometimes later. Did you use your own equipment? No. He insisted I use his secure terminals. Did he direct how you did the work, step by step? Micromanaged every line of code, I confirmed. David slammed his hand on the table, grinning like a maniac. Bingo. Misclassification. He treated you like an employee, but paid you like a contractor to avoid taxes, benefits, and overtime. In this state, the penalties for that are aggressive. How aggressive? If we can prove misclassification, David said, pulling out a calculator, he owes you for every hour of overtime you worked. You said 18-hour days? That's 10 hours of overtime per day. Double time for weekends. Plus penalties for missed meal breaks. Plus penalties for failure to pay wages on time. And the cherry on top, in our jurisdiction, if an employer willfully withholds any portion of the final check, even $1, there is a waiting time penalty. What's that? He has to pay your full daily rate for every day he's late paying the full amount. Up to 30 days. What was your daily rate? $1,500, I said. David whistled. So, $1,500 a day, for 30 days. That's $45,000 right there. Just for the waiting time penalty. Add the unpaid overtime, the taxes he tried to dodge, the statutory damages. He scribbled furiously on a yellow pad. We're looking at 6 figures, easy, David said. But we need leverage to make him settle fast. We don't want a 5-year court battle. We want a check next week. Did you see anything else? Anything dirty? I thought back to the server room. The blinking lights. The proprietary software Vane claimed his team had built from scratch. His entire platform, I said slowly, the memory sharpening. The one he's launching next week? He told investors it was proprietary tech. But when I was digging through the root directories to fix the security flaw, I found remnants of open source code. Code with a GNU General Public License. David looked confused. Speak English. It means he stole free code, repackaged it, and is selling it as his own. If he doesn't release his source code, which he won't, because it would destroy his IP valuation, he is in violation of the license. He could be sued by the original creators. Or we threaten to expose the IP theft in a public filing, David finished, his eyes gleaming. Investors hate IP theft. It scares them away. Exactly. David stood up and cracked his knuckles. Okay. I'm going to draft a demand letter. But not a nice one. I'm going to draft a declaration of war. We're asking for everything. The overtime. The penalties. The coffee money. And we're going to attach a draft of the complaint detailing the IP issues. He told me his lawyers would bury me, I said, feeling a cold thrill of anticipation. His lawyers are paid by the hour to defend him, David said, handing me a contract. I'm paid by the kill to eat him. Let's see who's hungrier. I signed the retainer. The hunt was on. Sending a legal demand letter is an art form. It shouldn't read like a threat, it should read like a prophecy. David drafted the document. It was 5 pages of pure, cold terror. We didn't ask. We stated facts. We laid out the misclassification of my employment status under the State Labor Code, Section 226.8, willful misclassification. We calculated the unpaid overtime for those 18-hour days, Section 510. We added the missed meal breaks, Section 226.7. And, of course, the waiting time penalties, Section 203. The math was brutal. Base unpaid wages, $100. Statutory penalties and overtime. 124,900. Total demand operator 124,900. Total demand 124,900. Total demand operator 125,000 ***. We sent it via certified mail and fax to Vane's headquarters and his personal legal counsel. Then, we waited. For 3 days, there was silence. Vane was likely letting it sit on his desk, treating it like junk mail. He probably thought if he ignored it, the little cockroach would scurry away. On the 4th day, the phone rang in David's office. I was there, sitting on the cracked leather couch, drinking stale coffee. David put it on speaker. "This is Arthur Sterling, General Counsel for Vane Enterprises," a voice boomed. It sounded expensive. Smooth, condescending, bored. I'm calling regarding this amusing piece of fiction you sent us. David leaned back, feet on his desk. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Arthur. Although the judge usually finds the labor code less amusing and more mandatory. Listen, David, Sterling sighed, the sound of a man wasting his valuable time. We know what this is. Your client is disgruntled because he drank too much coffee and Marcus docked him a few bucks. It's petty. We are prepared to offer him $500 to go away and sign a non-disparagement agreement. That's 5 times what he's owed. Take it. I felt a surge of rage, but David just chuckled. Arthur, you seem to have misread the letter. We aren't suing for the coffee. We are suing for the systematic violation of labor laws. My client was an employee, not a contractor. Marcus controlled his hours, his tools, his methods. You owe him for 300 hours of overtime. He signed a contractor agreement. Sterling snapped, losing his cool slightly. You can sign a contract saying the sky is green, Arthur, but that doesn't make it legal. The law overrides your contract. We are filing the complaint in Superior Court on Monday. And by the way, we'll be attaching the draft of our second claim regarding the intellectual property violations found in the server logs. You know, the open source code Marcus is repackaging as proprietary? There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. I could practically hear Sterling choking on his latte. You wouldn't dare, Sterling whispered. That would tank the IPO valuation. Monday at 9 a.m., David said cheerfully. Have a great weekend, Arthur. Click. David looked at me and winked. They flinched. Vane had made his first mistake. He sent a lawyer to fight a street brawl. Sterling was used to negotiating mergers, not defending against labor disputes. He didn't know how to handle someone who wasn't afraid of losing. But Vane wasn't done. The next day, I received a text message from an unknown number. You are playing with fire. Withdraw the claim, or I will release your personal information to every blacklist in the valley. You will never work again. I screenshotted it and sent it to David. Add retaliation and witness intimidation to the complaint, David texted back. The price just went up to $150,000. They call it Discovery. It sounds like an Adventure Channel show. In reality, it's a weapon. Rich defendants use Discovery to bankrupt poor plaintiffs. They bury you in paper. They delay. They object. They make you spend $10,000 to find a single email. Vane's strategy was clear: drown us. We requested my employment records, communication logs, and the server access times. In response, Vane's team sent over 50,000 pages of unindexed, disorganized PDFs. They included everything from the cafeteria menus to the janitorial schedules. It was a document dump, designed to hide the smoking gun in a mountain of trash. He thinks I'm going to read this by hand, David said, looking at the hard drives they delivered. He thinks I'm going to bill you for 500 hours of review time. I smiled. Give me the drive, David. You going to read it? No. I'm going to write a script. I took the drive home. I wasn't a lawyer, but data was my world. I wrote a Python script to parse the PDFs, convert them to text, and run keyword searches. I filtered out the noise. I looked for my name. I looked for coffee. I looked for overtime. It took the computer 4 hours to churn through the garbage Vane had thrown at us. At 3 a.m., the script pinged. It had found a thread. It was an internal Slack conversation between Vane and his HR director, dated the day before my contract ended. HR director, the final invoice for the contractor is ready. $45,000 including the bonus. Should I release it? Vane, wait. I saw him in the break room again. Drinking the premium roast. The guy walks around like he owns the place. I hate his face. HR director, okay? Is there an issue with the work? Vane, no, the work is fine. But I want to teach him a lesson about hierarchy. Dock him $100. Call it a processing fee or whatever. HR director, Marcus, we can't do that. It's not in the contract. It's illegal to withhold wages arbitrarily. Vane, do it. What's he going to do? Sue me over lunch money? He's a broke freelancer. If he complains, tell him to F***K off. It's about dominance, not money. I stared at the screen. My heart was pounding. This wasn't just a billing error. It was malice. In the eyes of the law, willful misconduct is the magic word that triggers triple damages. He explicitly acknowledged it was illegal, we can't do that, and ordered it anyway to inflict emotional distress, teach him a lesson. I printed the thread. I framed it in my mind. Vane had tried to bury me in paper. Instead, he had handed me the shovel to dig his grave. The next morning, I walked into David's office and slapped the page on his desk. "We got him," I said. He admitted it. In writing. He called it dominance. David read the thread. A slow, terrifying grin spread across his face. "Oh, Marcus," David whispered. "You arrogant son of a bitch. You just bought this man a new house." The deposition was held in a glass-walled conference room in a neutral law firm downtown. The air conditioning was humming. A court reporter sat in the corner, fingers hovering over her stenotype machine. Vane walked in 20 minutes late. He didn't apologize. He was wearing a suit that cost more than David's car. He sat down, checked his watch, and sighed. "Let's make this quick," Vane said. "I have a company to run. Unlike you leeches." David smiled. It was the smile of a butcher eyeing a particularly plump pig. "Please state your name for the record," David said. The first hour was a masterclass in dismantling a narcissist. Vane was bored. He answered questions with sarcasm. He thought he was winning because he was being rude. "David, did you direct the claimant on which coding languages to use?" Vane, "Of course. It's my system." "David, did you set his working hours?" Vane, "I told him to get the job done. If that took all night, that's his problem." David, "So you exercised control over the means and manner of his work?" Vane, "I own the company. I control everything." David marked a checkbox on his notepad. Employee status, confirmed. Then, David pulled out a piece of paper. The Slack thread. "Mr. Vane, did you ever instruct your HR director to illegally withhold wages to, quote, teach him a lesson about hierarchy?" Vane froze. His eyes flicked to his lawyer, Sterling. Sterling looked pale. He evidently hadn't reviewed the 50,000 pages his own team had dumped on us. I don't recall," Vane stammered. "Let me refresh your recollection." David slid the paper across the table. "Is this your handle? Is this your timestamp?" Vane stared at the paper. His face turned a blotchy red. This was a private conversation. "You have no right." "It was on a company server," David interrupted sharply. "It was produced in Discovery. Read the highlighted line, please." Vane refused. "Let the record show the witness is refusing to read the evidence," David said to the court reporter. "It says it's about dominance, not money. Mr. Vane, do you feel dominant right now?" Vane slammed his fist on the table. "This is a shakedown. You're trying to embarrass me over $100. "No," David said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We're past the $100, Marcus. Now we're talking about fraud. Which brings me to Exhibit B." David pulled out a thick stack of code printouts. "We had an expert review the source code of your new platform. The one launching next week. Are you aware that 40% of your proprietary kernel is actually copy-pasted from an open-source library licensed under GPL v3? Vane went white. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he was going to faint. "If you launch next week without releasing your source code," David continued, "you will be violating federal copyright law. We are prepared to file an injunction to stop the launch." The silence in the room was absolute. The hum of the AC sounded like a jet engine. Stopping the launch meant killing the IPO. It meant investors would pull out. It meant the end of Vane Enterprises. Sterling, Vane's lawyer, grabbed Vane's arm. "We need a recess. Now." "No recess," David said. "Answer the question. Did you steal the code?" Vane looked at me. For the first time, there was no arrogance in his eyes. There was only fear. Pure, unadulterated terror. He looked at the man he had tried to crush for $100, and realized that he had handed me a loaded gun. Vane croaked. He loosened his tie. "Can we talk? Off the record?" David looked at me. I sat back in my chair, took a sip of water, and smiled. "I don't know, Marcus," I said. "My consulting fee for talks has gone up." It's a lot more than $100 now. Off the record is a lawyer's way of saying, we surrender, but we don't want the history books to know. Sterling, Vane's lawyer, ushered us into a smaller breakout room. Vane looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The swagger was gone. The predatory glint in his eyes had been replaced by the dull panic of a trapped animal. We sat down. Sterling cleared his throat. Look, Sterling started, trying to sound reasonable. We dispute the employee classification. And the code issue, that's a misunderstanding. But Marcus is a pragmatic man. He wants to resolve this nuisance. We are prepared to offer $20,000. That covers the overtime and a generous bonus. You walk away today. No court. No injunctions. David didn't even look up from his notepad. He was doodling a picture of a shark eating a boat. 20,000? David repeated softly. Arthur, the waiting time penalties alone are 45. The statutory damages for the deliberate wage theft are another 10. We haven't even touched the IP violation. The IP violation is theoretical, Vane snapped, finding a scrap of his old arrogance. You'd have to prove it in federal court. That takes years. David stopped doodling. He looked at Vane. True. Litigation takes years. But an injunction takes days. If we file for an emergency injunction tomorrow morning, based on the evidence of copyright infringement, the judge will pause your lunch. Your investors will see the news on Bloomberg by lunch. How much is your IPO valuation? 200 million? 300? Vane flinched physically. If the launch is delayed by even a week, David continued, your investors will walk. You know it. I know it. So, let's stop pretending $20,000 is real money. You are staring at a $100 million loss. The room went silent. I watched Vane. He was chewing the inside of his cheek. He was doing the math. He realized that his pettiness over a $100 coffee tax had opened a door that could swallow his entire empire. What do you want? Vane whispered. We want full statutory damages for the labor violations, David said. And we want a consulting fee for my client's discovery of your code vulnerabilities. We are thinking $150,000. Total package. That's extortion. Sterling cried. No, Arthur, I spoke up for the first time. Extortion is illegal. This is a settlement. The alternative is I go home, file the lawsuit, and then post a detailed blog entry about open source licensing violations in modern tech startups. I have a lot of followers on GitHub, Marcus. Vane looked at me with pure hatred. If looks could kill, I would have been vaporized. But he was cornered. 100,000, Vane gritted out. Flat. No admission of guilt. Strict NDA. You never speak my name again. You delete the code analysis. I looked at David. He gave a barely perceptible nod. 100,000, I said. Certified check. Today. And one more thing. What? Vane hissed. I want a written apology. For the coffee. Vane's face turned purple. Go to hell. Then I'll see you in court on Monday, I said, starting to stand up. Fine. Vane slammed his hand on the table. Fine. Write the damn thing. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. Not the money. But the sight of Marcus Vane, the titan of tech, dictating an apology to his lawyer for being a cheapskate. The check arrived via courier 3 hours later. It was a cashier's check. Heavy paper. Watermarked. Pay to the order of, my name. Amount, $100,000. Along with it came a settlement agreement thick enough to choke a horse. Non-disclosure, non-disparagement, non-sue, non-breathe in Vane's direction. I signed them all. I didn't care. I had one. And clipped to the very back was a single sheet of Vane Enterprises letterhead. To whom it may concern. Regarding the deduction of $100 from the final invoice dated June 12, this deduction was made in error. We acknowledge that office amenities were included in the scope of the contractor agreement. We apologize for the misunderstanding, asterisk. Signed, Marcus Vane. It was stiff. It was corporate. It was written through gritted teeth. But it was surrender. I took a picture of the check. Then I took a picture of the apology. I framed the apology. I deposited the check that afternoon. The teller at the bank looked at me, then at the check, then back at me. "Big project?" she asked. "You have no idea," I smiled. I fixed a very expensive bug. When I walked out of the bank, the sun seemed brighter. The air tasted sweeter. I checked my account balance on my phone. The comma was in the right place. I thought about Vane. He was probably screaming at his staff right now. He was probably firing his HR director for leaving a paper trail. He would launch his product next week, and he would make millions. To him, $100,000 was a speeding ticket. A cost of doing business. But I knew something he would never admit. I knew that every time he looked at his balance sheet, every time he drank a cup of coffee in his ivory tower, he would remember me. He would remember the keyboard monkey who cost him 6 figures because he couldn't let go of a Benjamin. He wanted to teach me a lesson about hierarchy. Instead, I taught him a lesson about leverage. I called David. "It cleared," I said. "Drinks are on you," David replied. "And I don't mean coffee." Done. A year has passed since the settlement. Vane's company went public. The IPO was successful, though not quite the unicorn launch he predicted. The market is cooling on lifestyle brands. I still see his face on magazine covers occasionally. He looks tired. Paranoia does that to a man. Once you realize the people you step on can bite back, you never walk quite as confidently again. As for me, I paid off my mortgage. I put a chunk into savings. I bought my sister a ridiculous wedding gift. But the first thing I bought, the very first thing, was a coffee machine. Not just any machine. I imported a handmade Italian espresso machine. Chrome, brass, pressure gauges that look like they belong in a steam engine. It cost $4,000. It's excessive. It's unnecessary. It's magnificent. Every morning, I grind the beans. I tamp the grounds. I pull the lever. The rich, dark liquid flows into the cup. I take that first sip, and it tastes like victory. Sometimes, friends ask me if it was worth the stress. The risk. The 18-hour days fighting a billionaire. They say, "It was just $100, man. Why did you care?" And I tell them the truth. It was never about the $100. It was about the line in the sand. There are people in this world who think their money gives them the right to rewrite the rules of decency. They think they can take what is yours simply because they are big and you are small. They rely on your silence. They bank on your fear. If you let them take the $100, next time they will take 1,000. Then they will take your self-respect. I looked at the framed apology letter hanging in my home office, right above the espresso machine. Marcus Vane paid $100,000 for a cup of coffee. And you know what? It was worth every penny.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.